The morning at Niali Beach smells of salt and spice. Aunties fold my geli with practiced hands, the tarab band hums, and choral light spills into the penthouse like a soft promise. They say Jabari is running late, so when a bridesmaid asks for lipstick I go to the suite. The door is ajar, the veil lies on the floor, and laughter dies into a metallic hush. I push the door and find them, Jabari and Zawadi, tangled on the bed, blinking like children caught in a lie. For a moment 1,000 small losses flash through me, deposits, plans, faces, but I do not scream. I breathe, slip my phone into my pocket, and decide this story will be mine. I lock the suite, step into the corridor like a woman with a new crown, and rehearse a line to break the room. Makeup artists watch me, my cousin asks if I am all right and I whisper, nothing we cannot turn into history. I walk down to the beach where guests arrive in Kaitenjin gold, and I make one call that changes everything. I ask a radio host friend to bring her mic and her camera, and she comes. I walk down the aisle alone, veil lifted, and tell everyone the wedding will go on my terms. I hand the feast to a foundation, I keep the ring, and I sign a vow to myself. The ocean watches, the drone paints the sky, and phones rise like constellations. I close the suite door and turn the key like it is the last thing that still belongs to me. The lock makes a small, final sound and for a breath I let myself be that sound. I walk into the corridor slow, feeling the fabric of my dress, the weight of a new thought settling over my shoulders. In my head I try the line, loud enough to taste it, I caught my fiancé and my maid of honor on our wedding day, then I made one phone call. Saying it makes my chest steady. Makeup artists freeze with brushes in the air. My cousin Tabo comes up behind me with his hand on my elbow and his face full of questions. He says, "Are you sure?" I lean down and say, quietly, "Nothing we cannot turn into history." The words are small but they feel like a decision. I lock the suite again, more for my own calm than for secrecy. My phone sits warm in my palm like a small, dangerous promise. Downstairs the venue manager is already on his knees in a kind of panic, hands smooth with sweat as he lists options. Refunds, private talks, a quiet exit. The guests are arriving in Kaitenjin gold, color folding into color on the drive. Aunts hug each other and adjust head wraps. Someone mistakes the storm in my face for nerves and sends up a laugh that turns quickly into a hush. I stand where the carpet meets the corridor light and feel every eye that belongs to the day. I could disappear, call off the band, take Jabari aside and make it private. I could let the silence swallow the story like so many other small violences are swallowed. But the thought of them walking out unchanged, smiling into pictures that would never show the underbelly of their choices, tastes wrong in my mouth. I imagine the vendors counting their payments, the girls who might have used that cake as a meal, the little foundation that would have meant more than a playlist. I think of my grandmother telling me once that shame likes quiet rooms. I do not want shame to keep living with them. So I choose spectacle over silence. The word is sudden and bright. I step toward the ocean doors so the salt wind can be witness. I pull my phone out and dial a number I have saved under a nickname, because I once trusted that friend to make a bad joke into the right kind of noise. The seconds before the call connect feel like the calm right before a drumbeat. I breathe in the smell of heat and seaweed and wedding perfume. I tell myself to speak clearly, to use my voice like a map back to myself. The line clicks and a familiar voice answers, sharp and steady. I say, "I need you here. Bring the mic, bring the camera. Bring the truth." She says, "On her way," and the words fall through the corridor like a bell. I hang up and practice the opener one more time, feeling it settle into the bones of the day. Around me people are still saying congratulations into the air. I tuck my phone into my dress, lift my chin, and walk out toward the ocean where the breeze will carry more than salt. I press the number with a hand that is steady but shaking and wait while the line rings like a small drum in my ear. Kendi Waru answers before I finish the second ring, her voice bright and sharp the way it was in university when she ruined my bad poetry with a joke and then made me laugh until I cried. I do not give her the whole story in one breath. I say, quietly at first, I caught Jabari and Zawadi. On our wedding day. She does not gasp. She says, calmly, say less, sis. I tell her where I am, the penthouse at Niali Beach, the band in the lobby, people arriving in kitenge and gold. I tell her that my cousin Tabo is holding me up in the corridor and that the veil is on the floor. My throat feels full, but my words come out clear. I ask her to come now. Bring your mic, bring your camera, bring your truth. There is a pause, the kind that means someone is already lining up the words in her head. Then she says, on air, I am 5 minutes out. I hear the small movement of chairs, of other voices and the distant clink of studio cups. She tells me she will be live, that her crew is ready, that they will make the call real. I say one thing that I mean with every part of me. Please do not make my pain into a show. Do not take my shaking voice and turn it into fodder for clicks. Kendi laughs into the phone like someone folding a promise into a pocket. She says, we will not make you smaller. We will make your vows to yourself louder than their betrayal. The line is warm in my hand. She asks me what I want people to hear first and I tell her I want truth, timestamps, receipts, the sound of the room as it was when I stepped in. She says she will stand with me, not over me. I can hear in the background the rustle of cables, the practice of a producer clearing their throat, the soft command of a boss arranging a team. She tells her producer the address. She tells a technician to bring up a camera and to stream to every feed. She says she likes drama, but only the kind that changes things. I give her permission to be loud. Permission tastes strange and sweet in my mouth. I feel like I am breaking something and also building it. The weight between her promise and her arrival is thin. I hang up and put the phone back in my dress where it feels like a sleeping bird. I watch the sea through the corridor windows and I imagine Kendi stepping out of her car, hair in the wind, microphone in hand, a small army of light and sound behind her. I imagine the sound of her voice rolling across the beach and into the phones of people who would otherwise never know. In that imagining my chest unclenches a little. I did not call to be rescued. I called to be heard. Kendi pulls up like a storm of sound and light, hair loose, microphone in her hand, and within minutes the reception stage has changed into a live set with cables snaking like new veins through the sand. Her crew moves fast and calm. They point, they place cameras, they flip a laptop and the big speakers breathe. The Tarab band finds a new rhythm because Kendi tells them to, and suddenly the music is not background. It is the track for what is coming. I step onto the aisle alone, veil lifted so my face can be seen, and the first sound is a collective intake. Phones rise like constellations. Some people cover their mouths. Some people cry. The photographer snaps until his arm aches. I walk slow because every step is a sentence. The salt wind carries 1,000 small noises and the sea keeps its steady voice. When I reach the front I take the mic from Kendi with my hand that is not trembling anymore. I look at Jabari for 2 long counts and then at the crowd. I say, simply, there will be a wedding. Not between me and him. Between me and my future. The words land and something shifts. Kendi smiles at me like we had planned this in class. She signals to the band and they change the tune to something bright and loud. I tell the venue manager that every plate already paid must now feed a scholarship dinner for the Bahari Girls Foundation. The manager's face crumples with worry and then smooths when vendors who know how to count money and count people both say yes. They agree to keep the decor, the cake, the servers, the lights, the whole feast. They nod because they see my voice turning cost into cause. Someone starts the hashtag on a phone and it spreads faster than we expect. Hashtag Amina says _ due to myself appears on screens and hands and notes. Vendors who have been counting deposits wipe their faces and fold their hands and say they are proud to be part of it. I walk over to the girls' table. They are laughing, poking each other, eyes big with surprise. I toss the bouquet and it flies like a small white comet. The girls catch it and the table erupts. The sound is a new kind of music. Cameras capture the moment and the drone above tilts to catch the ocean and the arms and the thrown bouquet as if someone had painted hope into the air. People who came to witness a wedding watch a woman decide to use the day to give. They clap like the sound can fix things. Older women stand and ululate until the sky feels full. Teenagers post the clip as it happens. Within minutes strangers in other cities write messages saying they are doing the same on their own days. Tears run down the faces of aunties who had been tightening head wraps an hour before. The band plays on. The food is served to young women who need school fees more than they need cake. The story has a new center and it is simple and fierce. I feel lighter. The day that was meant to break me becomes the day that starts something larger. They burst back into the tent like a storm, Jabari with his shirt creased and eyes wide, Zawadi with lipstick smudged and hands that would not stop reaching for excuses. They tried the old lines right away. It meant nothing. We were confused. It was a mistake. My voice stayed low. I kept the microphone in my hand because that small thing was now mine to hold. I let them speak while I listened, collecting every sound they made like evidence. I had already saved the timestamps, the messages that stacked up like stepping stones, the duplicate bookings that matched times they could not explain, and the voice notes where they laughed about staying calm until the honeymoon. I did not shout. I did not fall apart. Instead I called the moments out one by one. Kendi moved like a judge on air. She asked me to tell my truth first, and then she cued the audio. The speakers carried their own voices back to the crowd, and the sound of those recordings folded into the tent like a mirror. Every lie they tried to offer hit the recorded facts like a drumbeat. The Tara band, waiting on cue, leaned into a sharp snap that cut the empty words clean. People leaned forward. Phones filmed. Aunties made soft sounds that meant, finally, justice. The venue security, seeing the pattern and the danger in their anger, led Jabari and Zawadi to a side tent where they could not fog the room with more words. They argued on the way, but their words were thin without an audience. I walked to where Jabari stood and unhooked the ring like it was a button on a coat that did not fit me anymore. I placed it back in his palm with a small smile and a sanitizer wipe because the absurdity of that felt true to the moment. I wanted nothing from him except the correct story to be told. I kept my receipts visible and my tone even. I watched the crowd learn what I had already learned privately. Silence allows betrayal to live. When people refuse to name things, those things linger and grow in the dark. I spoke the names of the messages, the times, the plans, and the space between their words. I told the girls in the front row that truth is loud and healing at the same time. Kendi let the recordings play again, and the tent filled with a sound that did not let anyone look away. Some guests cried. Some clapped. Some mothers whispered, "Good for you." The moment was not about humiliation. It was about ending a long quiet that protects the wrongdoer. I kept my grace because grace is not weakness. It is choosing how to move when people would rather you break. I felt the weight lift off my shoulders in a real, small way. The music rose. The cameras kept rolling. The story that had tried to bury me ended up giving other women a language to name their own quiets. I take the parchment with hands that used to tremble and now only hold steadiness. The paper is plain, the kind you can fold into a promise, and I write in simple lines, goals I will not trade, boundaries I will not cross for anyone, and a vow to never again measure my worth by someone else's willingness to show up. When I finish I fold the paper and press my thumb to the corner like a seal. The girls from the Bahari Girls Foundation gather close, bright faces that look like small new moons, and we raise glasses, plastic, but full of something heavier than champagne. We clink with the sound of people who have decided to keep living. There are tears and a few loud laughs, and in that noise I hear relief. We cut the cake together and the ululations start, those long, open sounds that elders make when grief becomes celebration. A drone lifts above us and the photographer jokes that the ocean looks like someone painted it just for us. The camera moves, and the blue stretches under the white clouds like a clean sheet. I hand slices of cake to the girls, to the aunties who held my hands, to vendors who stayed to help, and to strangers who clap because the story on their phones feels like a jar of light they want to carry home. I call for music and then for dance, and I invite everyone to move for the women who might have married warning signs. The floor answers. Grandmothers clap their hands and teenagers shove each other into the circle. Tourists who came for the beach find themselves clapping with us. The tarab strings bend into something joyful and the drums make the sand under our feet pulse like a living thing. I step out of my heels because heels were made for looking small, and I slip into white sneakers a friend brings me from a bag. They are plain, a little scuffed, the kind you can run in, and the comfort of them feels like permission. We form a procession toward the shoreline, laughter and song and the slap of bare feet on wet sand. People join, cousins, neighbors, the radio crew with their microphones tucked away for once, because this is not private grief turned public, it is a promise turned parade. At the water's edge I kneel and press my fingers into the sand where earlier someone had carved Jabari's initials like a small claim on a wide life. The tide comes in slow, polite at first, then with a firmness I admire. Waves touch the letters, blur them, and finally take them away as if the sea itself agrees with my vow. I stand up with wet toes and clean sand between my fingers and feel something shift inside me, less a wound closing and more a space opening. We walk back up the beach laughing, shoes in hand, footprints behind us like a sentence read and finished. The drone pulls higher, the ocean keeps its steady voice, and in the small pocket of that sound I can almost hear a future starting. Overnight the clips from Kendi's stream blew up. Within hours TikTok stitched the moment, Instagram feeds filled with the video, and morning shows in Nairobi replayed the scene. Brands started sending messages offering deals and donations, small shops sent bouquets, a travel company asked to sponsor my honeymoon. The Bahari Girls Foundation's donations tripled by the next morning and the scholarship table I set up had more names than we expected. The hashtag Amina says I do to myself became a challenge, women posting short vows to their future, sometimes funny, often fierce, with friends and sisters joining in. Zawadi posted a shaky apology video that read like someone surprised by the echo of what she had done. Jabari tried to send threats and legal notes, but the timestamps and voice notes everyone had heard made them useless. People I had never met wrote from Accra, Kigali, Gaborone and other cities, telling me they had used the day meant for hiding a lie to write a new promise to themselves. I booked a solo honeymoon to Lamu with a small white suitcase and a long list of beaches to walk. I started drafting a keynote I called Choose Loud about using your voice as a tool, not a weapon. Producers asked for interviews. Young women sent me screenshots of vows they had written after watching the clip. Some mothers thanked me for a language to teach their daughters. The story fed itself and fed real help to the foundation. Then, as things settled into a new pace, my phone rang while I was packing for Lamu. The caller was unknown. When I answered a quiet voice said she had something to confess, something that made my chest race and made me know the next chapter would be bigger than this one. I sat down and listened.